Hello and welcome back to Down to the Tyre. It's time for season 4 and you might notice a bit of a change around here. We actually have a new co-host. Meet Matthew, who also happens to be my brother. It was a perfect time for him to join too, since as you'll notice my voice isn't doing too great right now. So we kind of saved the day with this one. Today we're joined by Josh Buchan, TCR Macau race winner and 2026 British GT driver with Rodin. We hope you enjoyed the episode. Thanks so much for joining us today, Josh. I know you're super busy. You've flown to the UK this week as well. So we really appreciate you making the time for us. But before we get into kind of this year, British GT and all the other exciting stuff we've got to talk about, I wanted to take it back to kind of where your motorsport journey first started and kind of see how you got into motorsport in the first place, because I think some people always have really quite interesting backstories.
Yeah, look, thanks for having me. Sorry, I've had to delay us a couple of times. Yeah, I guess my journey in motorsport, I was quite late when I started karting. Like everyone obviously does go karting. It was the day before my 16th birthday, so I was a really late starter. And it was pretty normal. Like I was the typical, had no money kind of kid. And I actually wanted to get into karting a bit sooner, younger, because, Formula One. But we went to a go-kart shop and they're like, no, these are, thousands of dollars to buy. And so that delayed it for a couple of years because I had to start working on weekends and stuff like that and stop going out with my friends and bits and pieces. So, yeah, when I was sort of 12 or 13, I wanted to get into it. But by the time that me and my parents could afford to buy a go-kart, I was 15. And yeah, we did that. I did it with my sort of dad for a year or so, a bit under. And then, with respect to him, he wasn't as motivated to, push on with it like I was. And so, I wanted to live and breathe it. Being 16 and in high school, didn't really think that, I had an adult life in front of me and just wanted to go crazy doing go-kart stuff. So that's really where it started. I went off and did my own thing and hitched literally I would get friends who I met in that first year to come and pick me up with their trailer, put my go-kart in there, and go to races and stuff like that. So, where it started, that's where it started.
Cool. So once you graduated from karting, obviously you moved into Formula Ford. So did you always have ambitions to then move from there into sort of TCR and then GTs?
Oh, I mean, so my career has always been wherever I was either put or there was opportunity for me to fill a gap. Nothing I ever did or have ever done has been strategic.
Mm.
Uh, it's never been from a like I guess when you hear of guys who have not had much money in motorsport, you're still talking about people generally who, oh, we bought this and we could only afford to run it for a year and we really needed someone to help out, or we bought a Formula Ford or an F3 car and, we did it on a shoestring. Like when I say we had zero money, like my career has cost probably less than what some people have spent in a weekend racing very minor categories. So I never had a choice in where I went. It was all pot luck, in all honesty. Like Formula Ford, total pot luck that I even drove a car.
Mm.
F3, total pot luck. I was at a wedding with a team manager who knew me. I won a race shortly thereafter that made me look really good, and they had a sponsorship within their team that they gifted to me. And then in TCR, I had a relationship with Hyundai that went back sort of 5 or 6 years prior in driver coaching, corporate driver coaching. That when they went TCR racing as a manufacturer in Australia, I was their choice because they liked me. So um, all pot luck, no direction or decision. Probably the only direction that has been, I guess, planned has been GT, but again, a lot of ducks needed to be in a row for that to happen. So yeah, I would say up until this point, um, it's been the only direction that's been chosen.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you did TCR Australia, and it turned out you were pretty good at it because you won it multiple times. Were there any
Hmm.
standout moments from your time in TCR Australia when you're looking back now?
Yeah, plenty. Yeah, obviously my first national championship, which, at the time was a really big deal. Um, TCR was going pretty strong then. My first race win in TCR was a really big deal. Like, yeah, I it was my first year in the category, and yeah, the guys on the podium with me were Chaz Mostert and James Moffat, who's another supercar driver. But
Mm.
yeah, to beat someone like, I mean, Chaz is the name that I'm sure if you guys know of, but in our
Mm.
part of the world, he's the current supercars champion, and he's probably one of Australia's most accomplished drivers in the last decade or so. Certainly one of the most respected. So for me to beat him at that time, being younger and unproven, I clearly had the ability to do the job. But until you win a race on TV against some guys who are established, you don't really have the credibility that you can. And it was essentially overnight credibility at that point. So yeah, that was probably a standout as well. But
Yeah.
like a lot of drivers will say, there's standout moments that will never make a highlights reel. But
Mm.
TCR was a great time to drive for a manufacturer. Was a complete honor. And yeah, the door's not closed with them just yet either.
Yeah. Because obviously, I guess, was it through the TCR Australia success that you then ended up racing in TCR World Tour?
Yeah, well, how that happened was TCR Australia essentially folded at the start of last year, but the budget from Hyundai was there to run
Mm.
cars, and the original calendar in Australia included Macau at the end of the year. So the car was always going to plan to go overseas. We
Mm.
just thought, well, if we're not doing any racing, we may as well do as much as we can, send the car early and do the Asian leg of the World Tour. And we did that. So that's how the World Tour thing happened. And that was the massive blessing in disguise because we went really well. And, that paved the way for, some opportunity and some potential opportunity that came off the back of it.
Yeah. So obviously, you mentioned Macau there. Obviously, what was the feeling to win that race?
Yeah. I mean, it, like, I mean, I'm a pretty calm sort of dude. Like
Mm.
nothing really gets me. I mean, like to give you an idea, a couple of rounds before in Korea, I won the race in Korea, and
Mm.
it was in TCR World Tour against the genuine squads. Basically, no one who's not in the core group of drivers wins. So for us to win in a Hyundai in Korea and smoke the factory team as well while we're at it, they were like I don't even think they were in the top 10. I had um, the the boss of N Brands and Motorsport globally um, grab me by the shirt and tell me I had to win the race before it started because we can't let the Chinese cars win on our home turf. When I won that, I basically went, oh yeah, all good, kind of, yeah, no problems. When I won in Macau, whatever I was shot with across the line when I realized I'd won, if you could bottle that and sell it, you'd never work a day in your life ever again. It was, yeah, easily the standout moment of my career. And the only disappointing thing about it is that when you win a race like that, um, it's the biggest touring car race in the world, the Gia race. You instantly think, stickly enough, like I don't know how I'm ever going to top that. So
Mm.
as good as it was also like, oh God, like that's
Yeah.
this is the apex of my career.
Mm.
But yeah, tremendous honor, tremendous honor.
Yeah. Is it obviously when you watch it on TV, the commentators always talk about how tricky of a circuit it is to race at? Is it like that for the drivers?
Oh, it's terrifying, terrifying. It's the you speak to the boys, and they basically, depends who you ask. They're like, it's either Nürburgring or Macau, for what's harder. Um, but you know, with Macau is, I mean, the first practice session I did, I was 6 seconds off the pace. I mean, I've never been 6 seconds off the pace in anything. Um, and then the second session, you're 3 seconds off, and then qualifying, you're a second off, and then by the time you get racing, if you've crawled, walked, and run instead of run, crash, and crawl, you only just start to get a bit of confidence, and then that's when the place bites you, and it's so high speed. There's half a dozen change of directions over 150 k's an hour, between walls. There's no runoff. Like one of the runoff areas, I think it's into police. There's a crane in the runoff area. Like, so if you run wide, like you don't hit a barrier, you hit a crane instead. It's total madness. Best track in the world.
Yeah. So one of the other tracks that I know you've raced on is Bathurst as well, and that's another really unique one, isn't it? So what's that like to drive as well?
Yeah, Bathurst is certainly unique. It's with respect to Bathurst, it's a lot easier than Macau, but it's difficult in different ways, and local knowledge really helps out a lot there. Like you drive Bathurst off a series of maybe a dozen, 15 markers across the middle sector to string a lap together, and you can sort of drive anything if you use those markers. They're all the same in every car you get into. So the cool thing about Bathurst is that you know it's 30 seconds of extreme high speed and extreme risk to go fast, followed by a minute of a minute and a half of, okay, breathe, relax, don't screw up the easy corners. Usually at Bathurst, people lose more time on the easy stuff than they do the hard stuff, at least at the top level. It's a confidence track as well, but um, yeah, Bathurst is a unique challenge in itself, and a super cool track to drive once you get the flow right. It's probably the best flow. It's probably the best sector of flow that you'll ever drive.
Mm. It's a very impressive track for sure, isn't it? I think it's always the mountain section when you see, especially the TCR cars and the GTs going through there. It's another of those, like Macau. It's just so narrow, isn't it? There's like no room for failure or error.
For sure, yeah. And Bathurst, I always found, once I started using the walls as markers and stuff like that, like I was a lot more confident, because there's at Bathurst, really, there's, like I say, 35 seconds in that middle sector where every corner you have to be as close as you can to the wall. And the walls, when you go for a track walk, not that you should, because it's a sickening track walk. But the barriers, like, I'm 6 foot tall, and they're basically up to my sort of shoulder in height. So you can't see over the walls when you're driving. So it feels like it's really, coming in on you. Whereas Macau looks a lot more open because there's buildings and the barrier is like crazy metal. It's, you can kind of see through it. But yeah, super unique track.
So during your time in TCR, obviously you've driven both the Elantra and the i30N. How much of a sort of step of progress was the Elantra in comparison?
In all honesty, it was backwards at the start. It wasn't anywhere near as good as the i30 when it came out. We ran it in 23 for the first time, and it was miles slower down the straight. And that's really where it ended. Like, the car was not competitive in 2023. There were teams across Europe who were handing them back, saying, we're not racing this car. We chipped away with it, knowing how good the chassis was. And the way the point system works in TCR, if you finish, you're giving yourself a chance. And there were rounds where we had probably the slowest car, but if we tested a lot and I felt like I drove the car really well in 23 with that mindset of we need to maximize everything here. I lost the title in 22 because of an incident. So I thought in 23, I'm not going to lose the title because of any reason to do with us. And yeah, it was purely through reliability and through grit and determination from the crew as well as my end that we got that job done. But yeah, the Elantra was a massive backward step, and it wasn't until 24 the car was better than the hatch, and then in 25 took another step, and it's as it sits now, it's yeah, lifetime better.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we have TCR UK over here, and you see some of the types, but certainly a lot of the newer cars, like the Elantra, the Lincoln Co's, there's not that many of them. There's quite a lot of the older Gen 1s and 2s, and then quite a few Cupras as well. So it's certainly nice to see the
Mm.
progress they've made in other parts of the world with the cars.
Yeah. I mean, we raced World Tour in 23, and we definitely had the best Elantra in the world at that point. Um, we didn't have the fastest Elantra down the straight, but that's motorsport for you sometimes.
Yeah. So obviously, then you did your time in TCR, and then you got the opportunity to race a McLaren Artura GT4. How did that opportunity come about?
Yeah, so um, I had a friend of mine. Well, I was doing a lot of driver coaching at the time, and I had a gentleman approach me, Jason Yu, who wanted me to help him out with at the time his Porsche GT3 road car just on the track, and I was like, "Yep, no problem, more than happy." And anyway, we genuinely hit it off, and to this day, he's one of my best friends. He's the logo on my helmet, Ospire, and yeah, he was super fast on his track days, and he actually bought a GT4 RS Club Sport, um, and he kind of got screwed because he'd bought the car, did the order, and then kind of had radio silence. And as with Porsche race cars, if you buy one, you have to race it. It's part of the deal. When they're new, at least, um, if you're going to buy one, you need to race it. So he mentally decided that he was racing. Anyway, turns out that Porsche wasn't going to come, and I said, "Look, man, um, you know, a friend of mine is the McLaren agent in Australia. Like, if you want to race, like, we can get you a McLaren. They're here. I know they're here." Basically what happened. We grabbed a McLaren and off we went.
Cool. So, am I right in thinking you did the Bathurst 12 hours in one of the GT4 McLarens?
Hmm. Yes. So I was literally a fill-in a day before fill-in. So I was at Bathurst coaching in Ferrari Challenge, my current teammate, Cameron. Um, and he was due to do the 12-hour. And he did one session. It was his first time at Bathurst. He was doubling up Ferrari Challenge and GT4. He did one session in the challenge car and basically said, "No way, I'm not doubling up." And they turned like I was the only one there with McLaren experience, and I was sort of the top McLaren driver from the year before in GT4 anyway, and yeah, the seat was already paid for, I guess. And they asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, "Look, as long as I'm not liable for any damage or anything like that, I'm happy to jump in and do the job and just play my role." Like I didn't want to walk in and try and do anything special. I just said, "Listen, you've got two other dudes who are paying to drive the car. I'm like, just put me in the middle stint, old tires, high fuel, whatever it is. Like, will you tell me what to do and I'll do it." And we had a really trying day. Like it was cool, even though it was GT4, um, and there was only a couple of cars. By the time it got down to it, it was the McLaren and the Mercedes McLaren only had presence in GT4, and Mercedes wanted to win both classes. So essentially, they were two factory cars. Um, so we were battling it out all day. We had McLaren engineers, the Merc next door to us, had a factory driver, factory engineers. It was a really good battle. We ended up winning, which is cool. But yeah, I was a full blown ring in.
Hmm. Was it a lot of looking in the mirrors with the GTs sort of bearing down on you, especially in the sort of
It
mountain
was
section areas?
it was horrible. I would never want to do it ever again. It was horrible. I
Yeah,
think I counted. It was something like 40 checks of the mirror a lap,
mm,
something stupid.
yeah.
Um, yeah, the speed difference across the top is just phenomenal. So yeah, horrible.
Was that your first, I guess, first experience of multi-class racing?
Uh, First big experience, yes.
Mm,
Yeah, I'd done multi-class stuff before, but at like club level and
mm,
sort of minor endurance races.
yeah. So I guess you can sympathise a bit with some of the GT4 drivers in British GT this year then.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Um, Although it's very quickly shoes on the other foot. Um,
Mm,
Even testing yesterday, man, like I'm very aware of people behind me in a session. Like if someone's quicker in a practice session, I'll move out of the way ASAP. Um, GT3 and GT4 yesterday, wow, no one wanted to be your friend.
yeah. Was it a bit of an eye-opener, really?
It doesn't faze me too much.
Mm,
They pay the same entry fee as what our guys did, so they have as much right to the track as I do.
yeah, that's fair enough. So obviously, once you did some GT4 racing, you got the opportunity in one of the GT3 Ferrari 296s. Was that also sort of through your friendship with Cameron?
Yeah, so um, Cameron had bought a GT car partway through 24. No, sorry. What year was it last year? 20. Yeah, so yeah, 24. So the car was in Australia since I think it was like July 2024. And our plan was to test it a huge amount through the year and in 25 and do 3 rounds in 25 and then full gear this year. It didn't work out like that. We probably only drove the car 2 or 3 times before racing it in New Zealand and end of the year. Um, but yeah, essentially, Rod Wilson, who's team manager at Zagami, which is the team in Melbourne, um, he sort of picked me to join up with Cameron, who approached them to go GT racing, and I was selected as the pro for the combination. And yeah, Cam did challenge. I coached him to get that rapport going. And then luckily enough, you never want to make it artificial, and it wasn't. Me and Cam get along like a house on fire. Um, he's an awesome dude and wants to go car racing. So my job is to get him up to speed and make sure he has as good a time doing it as he can.
Mm. And is that in a way what sort of drew you to British GT then? Because obviously it's quite a distance. So what sort of made you guys decide that this was the place you wanted to sort of race this year alongside the GT World Challenge commitments as well?
Yeah, well, it's a long-ish story. So Zagami in Melbourne are the authorized dealer and distributor for Rodin in Australia. Rodin being a New Zealand brand,
Yeah.
first and foremost. Um, that was another thing that Rod lined me up with when Rodin Cars in New Zealand wanted to do an event in World Time Attack with their own project. I was put forward as the driver. I went and tried out and, passed, I guess. So I had a relationship with Rodin, um, and they were, they any stuff they did in our part of the world, I was always used. And then it was literally Cameron at the Australian Grand Prix a month or two ago. Um, Emma and David from Rodin said, "Are you interested in doing British GT?" And Cam went, "Yeah." really, it was as easy as that. When
Mm,
Cam said I want to bring Josh along as my driver, they were like, yeah, great, perfect. Like,
yeah,
wasn't really a question. So that's how it happened. It's a pretty crazy story. I
yeah.
was always touted for the drive, to be honest. Like I didn't have it, but the minute Rodin announced they were doing British GT, there were conversations about putting me in the car in some respect, but um, yeah, it wasn't until Cam came along to make it all possible that it all worked out.
Okay, so you mentioned before that obviously you've made a decision to go with Rodin and with Cameron. So obviously you've done media day, you had the test day yesterday. Am I right in thinking is that all the time you've had in the car so far?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's all we've
Yeah.
done so far.
So was it mainly sort of run planning or setup especially to make sure that you're happy with the car mainly?
Yeah, it's all been basically it's all been performance runs. Um, so yeah, we were. I mean, the trouble is at the moment the BOP heavily favors the McLaren right now. Like that thing is, even if we nail everything, we're not going to be as quick as the McLaren at the moment. It's in its sweet spot in its life cycle. It's had a hard life at stages, but the last 2 years, it seems to have been really strong. So, we're basically trying to get as close to that as we can. We made some good ground yesterday, but there's always more.
Yeah, that's understandable. And what are your sort of aims? I know you touched on it a bit there that it might be a bit of a struggle at times, but what are your aims for yourself and Cameron this season?
I think the aim for Cameron is to get him bulk miles in the car in a GT car and being a Ferrari in both Australia and in the UK. Um, we're hoping that by the time we get to the sort of back half of the year that we can become a really strong driver lineup, whatever region we go to, and then hopefully back up in 27 with the same sort of program and have a crack at it. Um, my goals, I guess for me, they're always the same. Just if I can do the best job that I can, that's usually been good enough to put me at the front. And you know, we have to learn the Ferrari product as well. It's uh, it's not an out of the box kind of car. Like you do have to make it work. So I guess from a Rodin, Zagami in Australia, there's a data collaboration that we're going to have. So we're expediting both programs. So we're trying to make the car as fast as possible and make our driver combination as strong as possible to get some results in the back half of the year.
So, especially, I mean, we'll hopefully be at the Donington round. So, hopefully, by that point, you'll be in a good place with the car, hopefully, with yourselves. Is there any track in the UK for this British GT season that you're particularly looking forward to driving on?
Probably Spa, to be honest. I know it's not in Britain, but that's a pretty attractive one.
Mm, yeah, it's definitely one on my bucket list that I'd like to visit. I haven't got to it yet. So, yeah, I mean, as I was saying, so do you know what your plans are, or have you got any thoughts at all for the following season? Anywhere you'd like to race, any series you'd like to race in that you haven't yet, or are you just sort of focused on the here and now and just taking it as it comes?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. It's not until the last couple of years I've been able to think of the following year, um, ever really. Not until I signed my first multi-year deal with Hyundai. Um, so I've never really looked past where I am because it's like, well, if you don't perform, there is no then.
Mm.
So I probably carry the same mentality, even though I know I'm still going to have a job next year. Anyway, I'm not looking past Silverstone, to be honest.
Right, cool. I think that's all the questions I've got. Gemma, do you have any more?
I just thought of a few, or just off the back
Mm.
of as we were talking, because obviously I know we talked about you kind of coming over from Australia, Josh, for the Silverstone test yesterday, but also
Am I right in thinking you're going to be flying over for like each round as it happens?
100%. Yeah. So after Silverstone, I fly back on the Tuesday, and then I'm racing in Adelaide in GT back home. And then 2 weeks later, we've got what's round two, Alton Park, and then I think 2 weeks after that, another in Australia, and like it's pretty hectic all the way until the end of the year, really, until Brands. It's full on.
You're going to get a lot of air mileage throughout the year.
I know, I know. I hope I'm with the same carrier for most of it. I'll be like platinum, gold, like forever. Um, but to be honest, the trip's not too bad. Like you just you aim to try and sleep an entire one of the flights. So in all honesty, like you're up for a 10-hour flight that you try and stay awake for. Other than that, like it's nowhere near as bad. Like I've done it twice now, in 2 weeks. It's nowhere near as bad as what the stigma around it is.
I was going to say, like, what are your kind of tips and tricks? But I guess you just get used to it over time.
I think everyone's different. Um, yeah, everyone's different. Like, um, yeah, I try and sleep. Like, I try and look and, if I'm landing in the morning, okay, sleep the second flight. If I'm landing at night, sleep the first flight. But the biggest trap for young players is just sleep whenever you can, because after 24 hours of travel, you're going to be tired. Doesn't matter what you do. So just sleep whenever you can.
That's great advice. My other question I thought of, obviously, people listening to this in the UK, I'd say over here, Rodin is very well known for kind of its single seater presence, whether that's GB3, F3, F2. So obviously, this is their first kind of foray into British GT this year. So I was wondering what it's like working with the team, obviously, as they're getting used to the championship at the same time that you're obviously getting used to it as well. How's that kind of working?
Yeah, well, I guess, I mean, obviously, Rodin in its form now, formerly Carlin, as I'm sure everyone knows it from back in the day, you're talking what, 25 years of like probably outside of F1, the biggest team in Europe, really. Like they'd be one of them.
Hmm.
Well, most successful at least anyway. Um, there are some incredibly smart individuals within those four walls. My engineer actually is an ex supercar guy from Australia, so um, that's kind of a long way to go to work with someone who was 5 minutes from you. But yeah, I think they're excited. Like it's super different. It's funny, you look at the workshop floor and you've got F2, F3, GB3, Freca, F4, Ferrari. Like it makes no sense. Like the thing stands out so badly. You look, they've got like their office and you look down and it looks so out of place. Um, but like motorsport, and particularly in their area, they have guys that will do stuff and then move on to, F1 sometimes. So they've got, a mix of people who've been around forever and then new people coming in. So I think GT3 at the moment is the biggest and best category in the world, as far as I'm concerned. There's a reason that all the F1 boys want to do it. And there's way more opportunity to drive than single seaters. So I think, yeah, it's an exciting prospect, not only for Rodin, but for us as well, and potentially for other single seat teams who might want to do the same.
Definitely. And yeah, you mentioned F1 there. Obviously, everyone knows Max Verstappen. As soon as he gets out that F1 car, he's as quick as he can into a GT car at this point. So yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I imagine it's bringing a lot more attention to GT as a kind of series. Is that how it feels for you being within it?
Honestly, I GT has been such a powerhouse now for a couple of years. It's probably made more difference to people who aren't in the scene,
Mm.
understanding what a GT car is. I think in the scene, drivers all want to do it.
Yeah,
Like you've got a laundry list of people who want to be involved with GT. So um, yeah, I don't think from the inside it's changed too much. I think from the outside it may have, but at the same rate, I'm not. I don't look at it from that perspective because I don't come from that side. So uh, from that sort of non-motorsport background, I mean. But look, it can't be a bad thing for the category.
Yeah, it might just be that someone who's only ever really seen F1, they don't really have any other motorsport experience. It might kind of open
For
their eyes
sure.
to it. So it can only be a good
For
thing,
sure.
as you said.
100%. Yeah,
And
exactly.
yeah, my final question I kind of had noted down, and I like to ask a lot of people this because I think it pulls some really interesting answers. What's your dream car to drive if you could pick anything, and what track would you want to drive it on?
Oh, wow. Geez, it's hard to narrow it down to one car. Like we always have this thing, like, um, you got to pick five cars because one's never enough and it always changes. But I mean, I've been super lucky with being back home. Basically every supercar you can imagine or think of, I've driven, which is crazy. Like 10-year-old me would just have a heart attack if he heard the cars I've driven. Um, but in terms of a track car, um, there at the moment there is no like comparing anything to the current GT3 RS is disrespectful. Um, it's the best track car in the world by a country mile. Like McLaren, Ferrari, Lambo, whatever it is, doesn't touch that thing. From a driving point of view, there are faster cars, but in terms of actual driving on the track, that's the best car at the moment, bar none. And then track, I mean, geez, yeah. I always have this other thing where it's like, what's your favorite track? And the answer is whatever track you go well at. Like,
Yeah.
there's tracks in Australia that, aren't very good, I guess, by the standard metrics that you go well at, and you're like, oh, I love that place. And then you go to somewhere like a Bathurst or Phillip Island, and you go like shit, and you're like, I hate this place. So, um, yeah, I can't answer where I'd want to drive it. I'd probably Nürburgring, right? Like I haven't been there yet, so I'd like to tick that one off.
That makes sense. Well, brilliant. Thanks so much for your time today. Before you go, just for anyone who's listening to this who wants to kind of follow you on social media and kind of see how your season goes throughout this year, where can they find you?
Yeah, just on Instagram is probably the best bet. That's where all my racing stuff goes. So just Josh Buchan. It's actually backwards my name on Instagram, Buchan Josh. Um, but yeah, it's usually all on there, and hopefully it's all good stuff.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for, as I said at the start, making the time to come on down to the Tyre today. As Matthew said, we'll be at the Donington round, so hopefully we'll see you there. And as always, best of luck for the season.
Yeah, come up, say hello, show you around the car, and life will be good. But yeah, thank you kindly for having me.